Hi friends, so we have Shamik Mukherjee again with us. He started his Agile journey as Scrum Master, later become Agile coach, and now he is playing a role of RT with 21 years of total IT experience. He is currently based in Netherlands. So friends, if you've not seen part one of this session, please do so. That session was phenomenal and you will learn a lot about scenario-based questions along with detailed practical answers. And friends, don't forget to hit like button. Your one like is a great motivation for us. And do subscribe for more similar session in future. So welcome Shamik one more time. And everyone is just waiting for this session, including me.
Thank you, Sunand. I was also eagerly waiting for it. Thank you for calling me.
Okay. So yeah, let's start. The
Yeah.
first question is, so let's suppose you are appointed as a Scrum Master for a team and that team don't have a Scrum Master for last few months. And the team know about Agile and Scrum little bit, and they attended few trainings on same. But overall, the team is not that performing well, and they are not uh, uh, able to execute their last 5 to 6 sprint properly. So the sprint is not successful. And so, how are you going to address this kind of team if you are going to be a Scrum Master for this team?
Hmm. Uh, I would like to first thank the recruitment team to at least recruit me as a Scrum Master. It's good that finally they realize that there is a need of a Scrum Master. Of course, uh, it actually gives me kind of thought what made them waiting for 5 to 6 sprints for not probably performing well. If I can assume they were not able to deliver the increments in last 5 6 sprints, that's quite a long time. If I even consider it as a 2 week sprint, then 5 6 sprint means almost 12 weeks, which is three to 4 months. 3 to 4 months the team was functioning just based on the assumption that they have done some agile and scrum trainings. uh, that is something, probably a wrong expectation from our team. I First thing is, without really finding out the root cause, I have to first take care of the team, where they are lagging, what is their improvement area. I need to understand what happened in last few sprints, and then accordingly take care of that area. It must be a lack of motivation, it must be lack of direction, it can be anything. I have to first find it out, how can I really make the team functional again. I need to first talk to the product owner, how the product owner was managing the product backlog, how the product owner was really collaborating with the remaining team to help them preparing the sprint backlog during the sprint planning meeting. And are the developers, are the remaining Scrum team members really self-managing? Are they really self-organizing to drive the sprint towards a successful increment? Is there a proper definition of done? Are they really following it? Are they conforming to the DoD? Are they having the sprint review? Basically, the Scrum framework, is it really being followed in a proper way? Just by assumption that a team has done some Agile and Scrum trainings is not sufficient for me, because I know from my experience, Agile and Scrum cannot really be understood, or it cannot be enacted by just attending some trainings or achieving some certifications. I'm probably deviating, but uh, from my personal experience, I have seen highly certified Scrum Master failing miserably with a team. So it is always necessary to keep in mind that in the Agile world, certification does not really mean everything. Certification or trainings, you have to live with those values and principles. So are they really upholding those values and principles that I need to take care of? Once I am able to bring them to track, once I understand from discussion with product owner, from the stakeholders, what are their dissatisfaction or satisfaction level, how they are really perceiving the failure during last 5 to 6 sprints. After collecting all the data, I will start functioning on it, if there is additional training required, if there is hand-holding required, if there is any additional coaching required, one-on-one interaction, group interaction, whatever is needed, I will take care of that as a Scrum Master. On the other hand, I also need to talk to the management, of course, not with a conflict mode, but with an inquisitive mind. What were their mindset when the team was functioning for last 5 to 6 sprints without a Scrum Master? It is an organization. Probably I'm not the only Scrum Master in that organization. There were other Scrum Masters already available. Didn't they really feel necessary to at least request 1 or 2 Scrum Masters to just take, charge of, I would not call it taking charge, but at least, agreeing to temporarily facilitate this kind of orphan scrum team without a Scrum Master, at least for a temporary time period until they can complete the recruitment onboarding process and find a good Scrum Master. It could have easily be handled. It could have easily be managed within an organization. If the organization really had that agile mindset, they would have understood that it is not really a good idea to run a team without a Scrum Master. That is never a good idea. So these are my first and foremost responsibilities. First, to bring the team on track, understand where they are lagging, where they are failing, and what learning are they getting from the failure. Talk to the product owner, talk to the stakeholders, and finally talk to the management. How did they really perceive this crisis, and what is going to be their mitigation action in case in future similar situation happens? Because it's a volatile market. Any Scrum Master can go away any day getting a better offer. So what is their plan B action in case a Scrum team suddenly starts functioning without a Scrum Master? We need to set up a kind of a, not policy, but we need to set up a culture so that no team functions in an orphan state. Yeah.
Okay. And may I ask you, like, what will be your starting, action items or action points with this kind of team?
Mm-hmm. Starting point will be, I have already got the assumption about the team that they are functioning, but not with so much success. And they have done some Agile and Scrum training. So I have to first understand where they are standing right now. So I will start with an assessment. Immediately, I will do an assessment. I will understand their maturity level, their satisfaction level, their motivation level. And based on that, I will take the next course of action. When there are already 5 or 6 failed sprints, if I can call it, maybe they have not been able to produce the increment. Spending time on trainings at this point will not really make sense. So I cannot really pull them out from the team and then get them into some training sessions. That is not going to help. We have to get back on that track. That is the first priority. So based on the priority, first point will be talking to the product owner, first assessing the team, getting the assessment result as soon as possible, getting the product owner into the discussion, making that person equally accountable, and then understanding how the feelings are with the stakeholders. Once that part is covered up, I will also have to find out, is the team dysfunctional? So is there any, again, lack of trust, lack of motivation? Because if you continuously produce failed sprints, one after another, 5, 6, 7 sprints, there's a big dip in motivation level. There's a big dip in the trust factor. The team becomes to some extent dysfunctional. So to make the dysfunctional team functional, again, I have to establish the trust factor. I have to give them the required empowerment. I have to really give them the boundary, give them the playing field where they can really feel empowered as self-managing team. Just being sure, holding their hand to that extent that they are able to produce the increment and they can at least delight their stakeholders in the next sprint review. That is the first priority. Afterwards, I can go back and talk to the manager. management, basically.
Okay, thanks a lot, Shamik. Okay, so next one is now let's assume that your developer feel a new version of software will help them to learn a new features of different technology, and they can produce better increment outcome for the different stakeholders if they are going to learn this new version of the software. But the PO is concerned mainly about the feature delivered. So PO is just saying that as long as the feature are delivered on time, she don't want to spend on any new licenses for the new version of software. So in this kind of scenario, to whom you have to reach out and to whom you have to approach or convince, and how you are going to do that?
It's a classical situation. Developers, being the technical persons in the team, they are more inclined about the technical feasibility or technical importance of getting a new version of a software, purchasing the new license, etc. But they don't have the empowerment of approving the budget for purchasing new license. They are more inclined into the technical excellence. And product owner is also right in her statement that she wants the features to be delivered. She wants the increments to be delivered in the right way. And as long as it is being done, she is not really wrong in thinking that she is doing her job. That's absolutely fine so far. So she may not feel that sense of urgency. Is it really important and is it really urgent to purchase a new license when I can already deliver the incremental features with the existing license, existing older version of the software? In such situation, I would first approach the product owner, not really telling her right or wrong with in her decision not to purchase the new software license or getting them the advanced software, etc. But I will try to remind, or maybe I'll try to show her the mirror by saying that as a product owner, it's perfectly all right that you are producing value, you are delivering value to your stakeholders. But by definition, you are also the value maximizer. Are you maximizing the value by holding the same old licensed software? So now product owner has to take a call. Maybe she gets into a discussion with the developers. I can happily facilitate the discussion. Basically, now the developers and the product owners has to decide if the value can be maximized by purchasing a new licensed software. Developers feel they can produce better increment with a new licensed software, and product owner still feels that the older license does good. So whosoever can convince the other party, if the product owner can probably prove with data that the existing licensed software is still capable to produce certain amount of value which cannot be increased by purchasing a new license. Rather, there will be some cost involved in purchasing the new license, and that's actually going to reduce the value production. If the product owner can prove this with the data, then the developers have to accept that it's better to continue with the older software. And if the developers can really produce with certain information and data that the new software can provide more value and it can be legitimately proved in front of the product owner, then the product owner can be convinced. I can be the facilitator in the discussion, but they have to show the proof of value maximization. Product owner has to take the active step in this discussion. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Shamik, for that. Okay, so in a coffee corner chat, your colleague, maybe one more Scrum Master, she tells you that her team does not feel it necessary to have a retrospective after every sprint. So she requests you to talk to her team and attend their next retrospective session to find out the improvement areas. So how you're going to respond with such request?
Okay. In real life, I already got such requests, and not once, but multiple times. And I know such Scrum teams where they really feel retrospective as an overhead, or retrospective actually turns into a coffee corner chat, nothing beyond that. And it is a common tendency for many Scrum teams to convert the retrospective into a backpatting session. We all have done good and we are doing good. So, okay, you have done a good job. The other person also says, okay, you have done a good job. Fine, let's have a cup of coffee. And thus the retrospective ends. That's not the main intention of retrospective. Many people do not really find the benefit, the value addition in retrospective. So they consider it overhead, either at team member level or at team level. They start skipping the retrospective. They now just cancel the meeting. For me, as an external Scrum Master, possibly it would not be a good idea to be part of the other team's retrospective and facilitate that, because retrospective, this particular Scrum event has some specific purpose. Retrospective is the only meeting in Scrum, only Scrum event, which is internal to the team. No external person is allowed to join the retrospective, not even their managers. It is not allowed. And the second point is, in retrospective, there is no Scrum Master, there is no product owner, there is no developer. Everyone joins as team members so that all can talk from the same level. And that's a beautiful moment during the retrospective when everyone can really talk about everyone else. Even a developer can tell a product owner that probably you were too busy with other activities, you could not give us much time. This is the opportunity to tell the product owner that we are missing you as a product owner. Or maybe the Scrum Master, if the Scrum Master becomes too busy in other activities, gives less time to the team. The developers or the product owner can, in this meeting, tell the Scrum Master that Mr. Scrum Master, you need to probably give more time to our team. We are missing you. We need you in different meetings, different events, in different works in our sprint, and so on. The Scrum Master or the product owner can also tell what extra can we do. Basically, it's all about the way of walking improvement. Product owner may have certain observations, developer has certain observations, and the Scrum Master also has certain observations, and they can discuss those observations, the find outs, in a friendly manner with utter respect to each other, and then amicably come to an agreement what can be their improvement action items. I am not really sure if I accept the invite of being a facilitator in their retrospective event, because again, their retrospective is their private event. I still, being an external Scrum Master, would not really be a good idea. But probably for once, I can accept the invite, maybe. Of course, letting the Scrum Master know that this is something should not be done. I'm being here to probably help you out, to hold your hands, to probably show you how to conduct a better retrospective. There are some retrospective tools, online tools, offline tools. I can show him the different options, different ways of doing the retrospectives. And if the Scrum Master is still not convinced, there can be multiple reasons. Maybe the Scrum Master is very new to the world of Scrum, so doesn't really know what different interesting ways the retrospective can be conducted. So I can join for one time. I can probably show the team without really getting into too much team specific personal informations. I can help them to conduct a good retrospective. And then I can request the Scrum Master to carry on for the future retrospectives. I can help him by supplying few more retrospective ideas. I can probably help him offline, but should not be part of their retrospective. It is their personal event.
Okay. Thanks, Shamik, for that. Okay. So next one is, tell us about a situation where you failed as a Scrum Master or an Agile coach, and tell us like what you have learned from that experience.
Experience in the sense, some bad experience, some good experience, what?
It can be anything. Yeah, bad or good.
Okay.
If you can, yeah. So the question is about more on a failure part. Like if you have, trying to implement something and maybe you have failed with that, or it can be any sort of failure as a Scrum Master or an Agile coach.
Okay. I can think of a situation where in my earlier assignment, there was a production deployment was supposed to happen. So you know the rules in Netherlands that you cannot really force anyone to work on the weekends. So if you want to get somebody working on the weekend, then you have to obtain certain special permissions here. So those permissions were obtained because it was a production deployment for a financial institution. It has to happen in the non-business hours. So the scheduled time was 7 a.m. Saturday morning. Before that, there were 2 Scrum teams involved into that software development, the patch development. And they developed it with proper understanding, proper knowledge. They did all possible rounds of testings. And when in Saturday morning, the deployment was happening, it failed. In the production environment, it failed. Now, let me tell you about the team composition. How was it? There was a mixed team. Basically, the financial institutions employees, and there was one service organization whose employees, they were also part of each team. So it was a mixed combination of the service provider organization and the parent organization. Both the employees were forming 2 teams. Both teams were mixed. And the deployment was happening for the financial institution. So when it failed, of course, the financial institution, the customer manager, he was already present in the session. As a natural, I would say it's a common sense, he immediately ordered for a rollback. So the software patch deployment was rolled back because it was a critical application. It could not be down for more than 30 minutes. So it was rolled back, and then the software started working again. That's fine. The crisis was averted. But now came the introspection part. Why did it fail? What happened? After some deliberation, after some brainstorming, it was found out that a crucial testing was missed out. Missed out in the sense, it was never included in the definition of done. The definition of done itself was incomplete. Now, because it was incomplete, it didn't really come to anyone's mind. The developers were not aware that this testing has to be done. The testers were also not aware. So this testing was knowingly or unknowingly missed out, which could not be caught till the staging environment. And during the production deployment, it was caught that this testing was not done, and for that it failed. I'm not getting into the technical nitty-gritties, but some crucial testing was missing. The manager, the customer manager, immediately ordered the team to start working on doing the end-to-end testing of the crucial testing activity, and also some associated testing which needed to be redone. Some other testings which were already done, they needed to be redone after this testing. So everything was being done in series, and the next target was set on Sunday evening. In the meantime, the manager from the service providing organization, he felt it is going to kind of damage his organization's reputation. So what he did, he singled out his employees from those 2 teams, called them into a meeting room, and then started shouting at them, kind of blaming them that because of you, this has been failure. Because of this failure, we are going to lose business and all these things. Eventually, I was there. I mean, I was also invited into that meeting room as an agile coach. And I was also a bit surprised at the beginning why this kind of behavior is coming up when there is a crisis already and we have limited time, just less than 24 hours to fix the defect and deploy it in the production on that very next day. So I had to basically stop the manager, the service providing organization's manager at that spot, and that the team members, I mean, the employees of that organization inside the meeting room, they were visibly terrified at that time because they were fearing consequences, because they were kind of being made to believe that because of them the production deployment failed, and because of them the company's reputation is falling, so it can have greater consequence on their performance evaluation, annual increment, promotions, etc., etc. They were really terrified. I had to actually stand there in the middle of the manager and those team members as a shield. I had to take a stand at that point. There was no other option for me, but I had to save those team members. As an agile coach, I tried to pacify the manager, just tried to convince him that uh, this is not the right time to start this blame game. Let them go back to work. And I again took out the team members separately in absence of manager, and I told them, I ensured them that nothing is going to happen with your whatever aspirations, your performance evaluation, etc., etc. Don't fear for that. We can together manage it and we can make it a grand success this time. Go back to your work, do the testing, whatever is there, do the fix, make sure that it is updated, it is deployed and goes live by Sunday evening. The manager naturally didn't feel good because I stopped him in front of the team. So he actually took it on his ego. He felt bad, naturally. Human nature. So he felt offended. And after some time, I also talked to him separately, again, tried to pacify him and tried to convince him that let's talk about it after the crisis is over. He somehow agreed to stop there. He did not really intervene after that. That was a good sign. Fortunately, the production deployment was successful on Sunday afternoon. It went live. And on Monday, in a special meeting, the customer manager specially thanked all the team members for working over the weekends. And as a result, they got some complimentary off, 2 days off during the weekday. And if I remember correctly, the customer manager, he also announced some kind of remuneration or reward for the entire team, for each team member, appreciation notes and some remunerations. So seeing that, proactively or reluctantly, I don't know, the service organization manager also announced some sort of appreciation and remuneration just to match the level for his employees. And after the entire drama was over, then the manager came back to me and told me, I'm really grateful that you stopped me at that time. It really had a happy ending, and he actually kind of congratulated me for handling the situation in the right moment, that it went good. There was no effect on the company's reputation. That was something that I made sure. I had another meeting with the customer manager, saying that the service organization manager is fearing that there can be a damage in the reputation. Please try to convince him that there is nothing to do with our, service organization or the customer organization. So he did his part, and then this service organization manager, his did part by ensuring that it doesn't have any impact on their growth, on their aspirations, etc. So it finally ended in a right way.
Okay, interesting.
It's interesting indeed.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is again a little bit tricky one. So the team basically is working on a big project. It's around 8 to 9 month project, and 2 months before the actual product launch, the PO came to know that there is a new checkpoint added to the DoD, definition of done, and that has increased the amount of technical debt. And you may miss the deadline after 2 months due to that. So what should be your reaction and how you're going to handle this kind of situation?
My reaction means me as a Scrum Master, right?
Scrum Master, and how you're going to maybe convey your team the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. This is something, again, of course, I mean, as Scrum Master, as Agile coach, we keep on getting such interesting stories and we try to address them, keeping the Scrum framework, keeping the Agile mindset in mind. So as coaches, as Scrum Masters, of course, responding to change over following a plan is always our priority, one of the Agile value. I'm seeing a pattern here. First point, why the product owner is making all the estimations that it's a 10 sprints project and there is a deadline when the product will be launched. Isn't it kind of being just slicing down a waterfall project into 8 to 10 sprints? Isn't it going that way? I mean, how did the product owner calculate from such a previous time, such long ago, that the project will be over in 10 sprints, and then after 10 sprint there will be a product launch? As per the Scrum, the estimation is normally done by the developers, and that too done sprint by sprint, possibly during the refinement session, which is of course not a Scrum event, it's an optional event, but by the refinement session, they can maximum plan for 1 or 2 future sprints. Basically, they can refine the stories, not plan actually, but they refine the stories. There can be a ballpark estimation that, okay, maybe, again, I'm just considering on an average, it's a 2-week sprint. So 10 sprints means 20 weeks. So after 20 weeks, there is a product launch tentative date. And when the product owner comes with a new checkpoint that's to be added in the definition of done, obviously there will be some consequences. When you add a new checkpoint in the definition of done, maybe after 4 or 5 or 6 sprints, when there are probably some 4 or 5 sprints remaining, I don't know what kind of checkpoint is that, but it may so happen that the checkpoint has to be applied on all your previous increments that you have already delivered so far, which actually means there are technical dates suddenly accumulated, which actually means all the velocities that you have calculated and reported so far are not the actual velocities, because velocities are calculated based on completed items in the sprint backlog. Now today, after the 5th or 6th sprints, when you are coming with a new checkpoint and saying that it has to be confirmed across all the increments that we have done previously and that we are going to do in future, that at that point, it makes all the completed items so far done previous sprints as incomplete items, which means all the velocity calculation, developers, even they do the estimation based on yesterday's weather. What is yesterday's weather? Their previous velocity. So all their estimation goes for a toss. So it actually breaks down in different level. I would say to the product owner that this is going to take probably extra time. That's the developers can best tell to you. I will let them to recalculate their effort and let them re-estimate how many extra sprints, if that can at all be calculated. But I'm still assuming that after 5 or 6 sprints, they have a good visibility. The cone of uncertainty has reduced at this point. So they have a greater visibility to understand and at least tell how many extra sprints they still need comparing to the planned remaining sprints. Maybe 1 or 2 sprints extra they need. Now, it will be on the product owner to talk to the stakeholders to come to a decision-making system. We should not hide this fact. And this fact should be made transparent across the stakeholders and management as well. Now, the stakeholders, basically those who are investing on this product, they have to take a call. There can be 2 possibilities. One possibility is, if the change for adding the new checkpoint is not really big enough to destabilize the launched product, they can still go ahead for that time being, let the technical debt be accumulated and launch the product. And after launching, they can bring the additional checkpoint related feature or the part of the feature as hotfix or fix in future in next 1 or 2 sprints. Anyway, they have to work for next 1 or 2 sprints. So that extra sprints can be planned after the product launch date, or if that change is so crucial that the product cannot be launched without that changes to be applied in all previous increments and the future increments, then they have to take a call whether they want to defer the product launch date. So the stakeholders have to take a call, is product launch date is more important or making a kind of defect-free product launch is more important. Whatever call they take, we will act according to the situation.
Okay, thanks, Shamik, for that. Okay, so the next one is, now let's say your delivery manager just come up with few project managers to you and then just asking you to train them in next 2 weeks to make them presentable as a Scrum Master at the customer interview. So as an Agile coach, how you're going to respond with this kind of request? I know it's I mean, it's happened, or I mean, sometime it happened, you know. So it's, yeah.
Most of the time it happens, and it's my personal experience. Again, when an organization goes through a transformation, I will probably take 2 steps back and try to explain the situation, why such situations arise in front of a Scrum Master or an Agile coach. You know, when a transformation, when an organization thinks that, okay, we are going to be transformed, everyone is doing Agile, so we are also going to do Agile. So let's do Agile. That envisioning, that planning that we are going to be enterprise Agile organization, or we are going to kind of adopt agility, the envisioning part that comes from the top of the management, the CXO levels, because they are the highest visionaries for the organization. So they envision in their way that we transform our organization into an Agile organization. So we convert all the projects into Agile projects. So we hired the Scrum Masters, they hired the Agile coaches, they hired the transformation coaches, they hired the organization coaches, etc. And then they dictate the coaches and the Scrum Masters how to run the show, because they already have published the deadline into the leading newspapers that this and this organization is going to transform into an Agile organization in next 5 years or next 4 years, something like that. As a result of that, what happens? It becomes mostly those CXO driven transformation. The coaches, the middle level management, the teams who are now getting formal, who are now getting familiar with Scrum and Kanban and DevOps, different frameworks in Agile, probably they have some different, they are also generating their viewpoints about the transformation process. Something they are liking, something they are not liking. They have their voices, they have their visions as well. But naturally, those visions, those voices do not reach to the CEO level. So there is a major disconnect, and then it majorly flows as per the CXO's direction for certain amount of time. It may be 3 years, it may be 5 years. And after that, there is a gross realization in the organization that probably it is not going in the right direction. Probably we are getting lost. Then from that point, the real transformation begins. From that point, the empowerment, the centralized empowerment from the CXO level, it gets distributed to different levels, and different levels, the coaches, they take charge, and then they combinedly, they collaboratively envision how the transformation should look like. Then comes the second wave of transformation, which actually brings the real transformation in that organization. So for any transformation in any organization, there are majorly 2 waves. First wave is majorly CXO driven. Second wave is organization driven. There, the cultures are included, the organization culture, local culture, different parameters are included or excluded according to the need. such situations that a manager is coming, delivery manager is coming with some project managers and asking me as an agile coach that, you have 2 weeks or 3 weeks of time, transform them into Scrum Masters. This type of incidents normally happen during the first wave, of course, because somebody from the top, that person ordered that I need to deploy 6 Scrum Masters in this account, in this department. And the delivery manager said, yes, sir, I will do that. And he actually picked up some project managers, because my personal experience says in most of the middle managers, they still feel that Scrum Master is nothing but another project manager. So just have them the project management capability, teach them what Scrum is. What is there in Scrum? Just 14-page document, 3 accountabilities, 5 events, 3 artifacts. That's it. Teach them, give them a training session, 3 hours, 4 hours. Next day, they will become the Scrum Master. That's where the major mistakes happen. And that's why the first wave of transformation fails. We actually end up building some pseudo Scrum Masters who has the hat of Scrum Master, who has the certification achieved, but they don't really are the Scrum Masters with the right mindset, because Scrum Master is not about having the certification. Scrum Master is not just having some 3 hours or 1 day, full day training. It is all about mindset, all about attitude. How are you upholding the Scrum values? How are you really, living with the Scrum values, the Agile values, upholding the Agile principles, how your mindset changes, how you transform your mindset from the project to product mindset, how you unlearn certain things. Project managers are a totally different entity. They are the power positions. Project managers are supposed to be the leaders. They dictate, they order, they manage the people. On the contrary, Scrum Masters are actually servant leaders. There is a distinct difference between a leader and a servant leader. Now, suddenly from becoming the project manager, the leadership role, to become the Scrum Master, the servant leadership, it is a big process of unlearning and then learning new things. Knowing the Scrum values and all these things, it takes time. Process wise, if the delivery manager comes to me, it's easy to say no, but that doesn't help in reality. Given 3 weeks time, I can still at least give them the basic knowledge. And no one actually is born as a Scrum Master. Of course, you make failures. I will try to get the buy-in from the delivery manager that not just giving them the training is sufficient. I know as first-time Scrum Masters, there will be a lot of mistakes made by them. They will do failures. They will do mistakes. I need to ensure that they can play in a fail-safe environment. I'm there to hold their hand, provided I have sufficient bandwidth to spend time on them. So the training may finish in 1 or 2 days. Maybe I can still try to coach them for next 1 or 2 weeks. That's fine. But the journey does not end there. Actually, the journey begins there. So there will be certain handholding needed. I need the empowerment to get the required bandwidth to become coach for them for at least quite some time, 6 months, 1 year. And then I have to ensure that they get a fail-safe environment so that they make failures and they can learn from the failures without having the fear of any consequence from the delivery manager or the upper senior management. That's my way of approach.
Thanks, Shamik, for that. Okay. So now this one is a little interesting. So you have to tell us about a time when your previous manager or any of your team member stressed you, and what they do to upset you. I'm sure no one going to upset you, but that's and how you are going to handle it. There's more on behavioral aspect.
Behavioral aspect, yes. I can probably be a little bit personal. I used to be a very short-tempered person long back. I mean, upsetting me was really a easy thing for anyone. I would react very easily. It took me quite a long time. It has been a long journey to change the attitude in myself, because, you know, none of us are God. Okay, we are human beings. We have our own shortcomings. We have our own baggages. Looking at you, identifying your baggages, and then finger pointing you is quite easy, because I can see your baggages, your shortcomings very easily. I can taunt you on your, maybe on your speaking style, on your handling stress, etc. But I do not really see myself. How am I speaking? How am I being perceived by others? It takes some time to identify your own baggages. So I now, at least in the present time, it is probably not that easy to stress me in that way. I can think of one such situation. It was a bad incident, actually, I would call. It happened some 3 years back in the same organization. I was a project manager at that time. I was not even an agile coach. So I was managing a team, and the team could not deliver a certain thing to the customer because of some limitations. There was some shortcomings in the requirement document which could not be clarified because it was the year-end situation. We had the American client who were all on leave during the Christmas New Year time. So they were all on vacation for 3 weeks or so. There was no one to answer. The delivery was supposed to happen by 7th January, and it did not happen. Actually, it was delivered by 15th or 16th January. It was late by over a week. And the customer made an escalation. The traditional world, we lived with escalations. And that escalation actually turned out in a wrong way, because the customer, without really understanding the Indian organization's hierarchical systems, she actually copied all the senior managers into that escalation email. So it went out to the highest level in that particular assignment, in that particular engagement. And the focus point of the entire storm was myself as a project manager, because it was a delay from my team. So eventually the pressure was being built up, and I made sure that the next delivery does not meet its deadline, and I tried to explain at different level why the delay was happening, because there was certain requirement we needed and the concerned person was not present. So we could not really do anything. We focused on other things. Fault was there, but it was not a deliberate fault. We had no other option. But because it was a customer escalation, no one was really in a position to listen to me, and they wanted to find a scapegoat. And I was the natural target at that point. So eventually the pressure was built up in such an extent that the delivery manager, probably on the previous evening, he had a heated call with the on-site business manager or the delivery client manager, etc. And probably he had to face some music on the previous evening. So there are two types of managers. The first type of managers are, when you stress them, they just percolate down the stress to the lower level. And there are another type of managers, whatever amount to stress them, they do not percolate down the stress to the next level. They still try to be nice and try to mitigate the risk, mitigate the crisis situation in the nicest way. So my manager at that time was the first category. Whatever stress he used to get, he used to percolate down to our level. So he actually pulled us in, the entire team, inside a meeting room, and I had to explain the same story for another hour. Every team member, they tried to tell their story, and then the manager actually insulted me in a howling tone. Basically, he shouted at me in a very unprofessional manner that everyone was stunned. In front of all other team members, he kind of, not with bad words, but with normal words, he kind of abused me. Like, is this the thing that you are doing as a manager? Is this the way your management style? Are you trying to be a union leader? I heard the term union leader for actually because I was trying to shield my team. He was trying to insult me by calling me a union leader, but I can still assume that that manager became a manager just based on his seniority, because he spent probably his entire life in this organization. So he grew up to the position of manager without really going to a management school. Fortunately, I have done management. I have a professional diploma in supply chain management. So I have read some management books, and I know that, you know, union leader is not really an insulting phrase. It is basically a badge of honor for me. But it was actually futile at that point to tell that to the furious manager, because he was trying to save his back, to be honest, because he had to answer to the on-site customer manager by that evening. So he was shouting at me. He shouted for at least 5-10 minutes. At the entire time, I had to just keep quiet because I cannot really match the voice level with that person. That's not my nature. So once he finished his howling, I had to just tell him that I'm just giving him a random name. Let's say his name was Sunil. Of course, his name was not Sunil, but I'm just taking a fictitious name, Sunil. I think after this incident, it is not possible to work here as a manager. So let's decide, either you stay or I stay. And now I'm getting out of this meeting room. I'm straight away going to the HR, and I'm going to give them the written complaint that you misbehaved with me in front of the team, and you actually misbehaved with the entire team. And there are some lady colleagues also in the team. The way you shouted, it can easily be turned into a more grievous complaint that you misbehaved with ladies inside the office. I actually did that, and there was some consequences, but I also tried to save him, and I could save him as well. The strange thing that I noticed that he never had a remorse for his misbehavior afterwards. Till the last day I was there, I actually took a release from that assignment after 2 months. Basically, it was a challenge from my side as well, that because the deadline was missed, so I have to make one deadline on the scheduled date, and then I will ask for a release. So I made that in March, and then I asked for a release, and I gained that release. By that time, I already talked to the HRs so that there is no hindrance about getting my release from that assignment, because I made my mind that I'm not going to work with this manager anymore. So at that point of time, now when I recall that incident, I was so stressed. I could not really shout at his level, but coming to my desk, there was no one. I still remember that day I was crying. It was such a bad insult. It was such a bad humiliation. But at least I could muster my courage and told him that this is something that you are doing unprofessional, and I'm going to report to the HR. Now, when I really look back, I can probably think that I practiced the Scrum value of courage without really knowing about the Scrum value those days. This is one of the stressed situation that I handled in my way. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but yeah.
Hey, thanks, Shamik, for sharing your personal experience. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's sometimes unfortunate, but yeah, things happen, and especially with the IT work culture in India.
Indeed.
Yeah, we have.
Most of the
Okay.
cases,
Yeah.
I can just add one more thing. Most of the time it happens because the Indian society is mostly hierarchical in nature. So the senior managers or the middle level managers, by becoming the managers, they consider themselves the headmasters of the team, and they consider the team members as their students. They can scold, they can shout, they can punish, they can do anything to the team members because they hold a power position. The day the managers will realize that they are not really the bosses of the team, they are just another team member, then start the actual transformation. Then the organization becomes agile, I mean, towards a certain extent towards agility.
And whoever is watching this video, guys, we are not generalizing. I mean,
No.
all the project managers, it's just like our personal experience which we are sharing, guys. So please do not take it in any other way.
No. Yeah.
We have seen a lot of good managers as well personally. So again, it depend, it's not like all the project managers in India just are like that. So just yeah. Okay, Shamik, I think yes, we have done all the questions for today. And again, I know like it's a wonderful session. The second session is again like our first previous session. So thanks again one more time, Shamik, for all your wisdom.
Thank you so much for giving me the platform.
Thanks again, Shamik.
Yeah, it was a wonderful session for me as well.